Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, we're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and today we welcome in Roy Williams of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, we're going to have what we've styled as an update on commerce here in Oklahoma City generally, greater Oklahoma City, and perhaps state-wide, depending on what Roy wants to talk about. He's the president and CEO of the greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. He's going to tell us about what's going on, and of course, I hope you'll supplement a little bit what he's talking about with your knowledge about what's going on within the city.
Well, I'm sure I'll learn more than I offer, but we'll be glad to be a part of the discussion. Roy Williams, the president of the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, today's guest in The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
I like the idea of improvisation and starting with not a preconceived idea. All of my work is about visual images taken from my memory. I'm Brenda Kingery. I am an artist and I'm a proud Chickasaw. One time I said, "Oh God, please don't let me die with my paintings in the closet." And what I would want them to be is everywhere. I would want them to be loved, to be used, to be respected. You work your whole life doing this. You just keep going as long as you can. And I have such a good background with a 106-year-old grandmother that I've always thought in my mind I would just paint until I'm 106. My Chickasaw heritage has become a primary part of my life. And the reason is, it's a place I call home.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we welcome back to our show Roy Williams, the president and CEO of the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. Roy did his undergraduate work at Texas Lutheran University, got his MBA at Sam Houston State University. In 2004, we were lucky enough, well, he came to Oklahoma City in 2002, but in 2004, we were lucky enough to have him designated as president and CEO of the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber. Prior to that time, he had been engaged with other chambers around the state, around the nation, I should say, and even internationally to some extent, and had engaged in private consulting work. Since 2004, however, he has devoted his full time and effort to Greater Oklahoma City, and we're glad about that. He's been the recipient of many awards and accolades and been very active in a number of activities, which would take his whole show if we went through them. Roy, basically, welcome. Sure glad to have you back again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here, Kent and Mayor. It's always good to sit in this crowd.
We could ask the broad question of, hey, how's the economy? But I think that the answer is, well, it depends on how where you want to go with that. Statewide,
depending on the answer, it'd be a short show.
Yeah. So if someone asked you that question, what would you say? What's a succinct way of summing up the economy?
Well, you can't ignore what's going on in the oil and gas sector, but few people really understand that in the metro, that only represents 3% of our employment, the oil and gas sector. While it certainly has a more significant economic impact on the gross metropolitan product, employment side, it's not that big. And the metro is really different from the state of Oklahoma, because who's really getting hurt right now is rural Oklahoma, because that's where the drilling takes place and that's what's down. We have the corporate headquarters. The other thing is we're not really diversified in the energy sector. We don't have refinery, we don't have retail, we have not too many manufacturing suppliers. So unlike some other areas, we just have the drilling companies. So we don't have the impact in employment declines like a lot of other places. But that's not to say it's not impacting our community. It certainly is, because the headquarter companies are also very engaged in our community, nonprofit support, all of those kind of things. So, we do certainly feel that. But we are no longer just an energy dependent economy. The aviation aerospace sector, the bioscience sector, the hospitality sector, are all significant parts. In fact, the aviation and bioscience sector have roughly the same impact economically, but more than double the employment of the oil and gas sector. So I think people kind of forget how diversified this economy has become, and really pointing to the fact that the hospitality industry is our fastest growing sector. And 2 decades ago, we didn't really have a hospitality sector.
Let me ask about something you said, and I want to make sure my distinction is correct or is clear. You said we do not have a diversified oil and gas economy, but you are not saying we don't have a diversified economy.
True,
in Oklahoma
true.
City.
Yeah.
Those are two different topics.
To clarify,
Yeah.
if you look at places like Houston and Denver, where they're energy cities as well, they have the whole gamut of the energy sector. So when the top domino starts falling, it hits and hits and hits. Where here, it doesn't hit our manufacturing because we don't have that much manufacturing that supports it. We don't have refineries that get hit. And so we don't have that secondary and third level impact that a lot of other economies have. And I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture here, but it's true. We're very narrow in the energy sector here. We're not really broad in the energy sector.
Well, other energy climates, either Houston, Dallas, Tulsa, how are they affected by this differently compared to Oklahoma City?
Well, most of them have that refinery sector that gets hit as well. Houston certainly has major energy companies who are not just in drilling, they're in the retail business. So that hits them too. Also, Houston is the headquarters of many of the major suppliers, the Halliburtons, the Baker Hughes, those kind of the downstream companies. So they get hit in multiple areas. But two, those economies are a lot more diverse than what they used to be too. So we're all suffering through it, but also I would say we're not suffering the way we did in the 80s and 90s and other times, because we do have this diversity. As a great example, Boeing here is actually hiring petroleum engineers and training them to be aviation and aerospace engineers. Well, we didn't have that opportunity 2 decades ago. We do have that now. And a lot of the other technical skills that oil and gas people have had are now transferable to a lot of our other sectors that we didn't have before. So a very, very different environment than we had before.
And the attraction to talent is in Oklahoma City is apparent. We have people moving here, and I'm wondering if one of the repercussions of rural Oklahoma's reliance on the oil and gas drilling is that we're getting people from the rural areas to move to Oklahoma City because the jobs are drying up in those areas out in the rural areas.
That's correct. Yeah, we are seeing some in-migration from rural Oklahoma because we have a lot of employers here who are looking for people. We've had a net increase in employment through this time frame here, but we have a lot of unfilled jobs. Tinker's trying to hire 1,000 people right now. Paycom is hiring. Boeing is hiring. The health and bioscience entities are hiring. Construction is hiring. The hospitality sector is desperately hiring. I mean, our hospitality sector is just exploding. So there's many, many job opportunities in the market, and we are seeing an in-migration of people to meet those job requirements.
Are we, well, for those of us that were in Oklahoma City in the bust years of Penn Square Bank,
Right.
we noticed that the downturn or the dropping out of the bottom of the oil and gas industry had a dramatic effect on a lot of other industries such as banking. While I see oil and gas firms struggling in Oklahoma City, I don't see a corresponding struggle among the banking sector, such as was the case in the early 1980s.
And you don't see it in the construction industry went down. You didn't see it in the commercial development side. So yeah, this is very, very different from what we witnessed a number of decades ago.
Roy, then what advice would you give state government as they start to reassess their revenue streams? Because it appears that oil and gas is a significant, not the total reason that they're having a shortfall, but apparently they're over-reliant on oil and gas revenue. How should they diversify their revenue streams? What advice do other states offer us in that area?
Well, and I've lived in 4 different states, and I've done consulting work in about 25 different states. And it seems like every state wants what a different state is doing. When they're, I've lived in cities where they were dependent on sales tax and they wanted to get property tax, and those who were dependent on property tax wanted to get sales tax. But I think the lesson in all that is diversity. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't look at one revenue stream. Look at multiple revenue streams, because inevitably there's going to be cycles. And I think that's what the state needs to think about. This whole issue on sales tax is a big issue that the state is talking about, the online sales tax. But then going further, we have to always continue to strive for diversity through incentive programs and other initiatives that the state takes. And I think you have to be very careful not to try to solve a short-term problem with a short-term solution. You really have to think long-term, where are you trying to go, and not just do knee-jerk reactions. And I'm not implying that's what they're doing, but I do think you just have to be very conscientious about this is a long-term process. We're not going to diversify the state overnight. We're not going to solve the budget problem overnight. But you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater either, and throw away your opportunities for long-term development. I mean, just to cite as an example, there's been discussion about the aviation aerospace tax credit, and that tax credits are, something the legislature wants to work on. Well, do we really want to not attract the Boeings of the world to Oklahoma anymore that are paying $100,000 to $110,000 jobs? Those kinds of decisions are critical for long-term diversification, as opposed to, well, let's just stop the bleeding on the budget today. Those are tough decisions, but you really have to think, well, what is this going to mean to us 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now if we do this today? Whether it's infrastructure, whether it's education, whether it's corrections, those are all issues that are long-term issues, not short-term issues. So, I mean, that's the advice is diversity is critical, and all the policies and programs of state government that can help diversity should really be looked at strongly.
All right. Roy Williams is the president of the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. He's today's guest in The Verdict. We'll have another segment with Roy right after this.
Oklahoma's land and air, water and energy, they all matter.
Today, thanks to emerging technologies in oil and natural gas production, there are many new opportunities to conserve water.
Advanced methods help clean and recycle water from energy production. In fact, many producers are now reusing up to 50% of the water used in their well completions. Learn more about how Oklahoma producers are recycling water at oerb.com/bothmatter.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and our guest today is Roy Williams of the Chamber of Commerce.
Roy, during the first segment, you mentioned, used the phrase hospitality industry. I can recall when there weren't very many hotels. I think you corrected me and said there was one in downtown Oklahoma City. Now we have many. Is that included within the definition of hospitality industry?
Absolutely.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Oklahoma City has transformed, I guess, over the last decade primarily, really into a hospitality destination, which, you know, that was words we didn't use a decade ago. But it's such a combination of things. It's what's going on on the river. It's what's going on in downtown. It's everything to do with concerts. It's everything to do with conventions. We have several hotels now that are full-service hotels that do their own conference development. But it really tends to grow on itself. And the activity downtown that is driven not only by the hospitality industry, but also by the residents who live down there, and the social activities that occur. You know, we get people now who ride Amtrak up here from Dallas and spend the weekend just stay in downtown and take advantage of live music scenes, take advantage of sports venues, take advantage of restaurants. And as a result, we're seeing this huge demand for hotel rooms. In fact, when you look in the metro, downtown has the highest room rates and the highest occupancy of the entire metropolitan area. The same way with living accommodations. The rental rates downtown in apartments are the highest in the metro and the highest occupancy in the metro. So downtown has really created a vibe, both of the hospitality industry as well as the resident industry.
Tell me about the number of hotels either now downtown or under construction to be downtown.
Well,
approximately.
Yeah, right now I think there's about 10 or 12 hotels open. There's probably another 3 or 4 under construction, and there's another 3 or 4 or 5 that are being talked about. So phenomenal growth. In addition, you know, there's a planned convention center hotel, which would be the largest hotel of all of them. So that would be probably a 650 to 750 room hotel as well. But a strong demand in the marketplace for it, and these hotels are doing well.
It's almost as if there was a time when our per capita income went up pretty good, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it almost looks like there was a reaction to that in the hospitality industry. In other words, people had extra money to spend on restaurants, for instance, which is part of the hospitality industry. And I think a lot of times local people are responsible for those hotel rooms filling up, whether they're staying in them, but they're inviting their friends in and to spend a weekend. And I think we've also kind of become the destination for people throughout the state of Oklahoma. If they're going to go spend a weekend somewhere and have a little getaway, maybe they used to go to Dallas, maybe they used to go to Kansas City. Well, we might be in a rotation now where there's a good chance they're going to come to Oklahoma City.
They want to see the Thunder play.
Yeah. And how many statewide organizations are there that have to hold one get-together a year? Well, it's centrally located, and you don't need to rent a car when you get there, and it's very, very convenient. What the city fathers put into the 80s and 90s in the planning we're really reaping the repercussions of that now.
Yeah, the variety is just phenomenal too, because we have all these live music venues opening up downtown. The 21C Hotel, which is a destination art museum hotel. People come there just for that purpose. But add to that the river sports things. That's going to be a draw from probably hundreds of miles away. We even have destination retail in the marketplace that people drive in from 100 miles away to take advantage of that. So it's just a combination of a lot of different things to pull that.
Is it too simplistic to say that maps, without regard to which number you assess on maps, led to Bricktown and downtown development, and downtown and Bricktown development led, or at least to a large part contributed to the diversity of our commerce?
I think it's undisputable that
it
that
goes back to
investment,
city leaders like
Absolutely.
this guy and
Absolutely.
others before him.
Yeah, that was the transformation program, was MAPS.
Well, it was when we realized we couldn't be a suburb of nothing. Downtown had shrunken and died up, and there was no activity.
Yeah.
Life in the suburbs wasn't bad in the 80s and early 90s. I mean, if you lived in the suburbs, it's where you shopped. It's probably where you went to church. It's probably where your kids went to school. You might have worked downtown, but you probably didn't. And at some point we realized, that's not something that's sustainable. You can't just keep expanding out and let the downtown core suffer. And so MAPS kind of reinvested some capital and some life to the inner city. MAPS for Kids came in, invested in 75 neighborhoods and the capital needs of the school districts. And that is, you know, I think two steps that the rest of the country right now is just trying to figure out, gee, how did Oklahoma City pass us by? You know, when we look back now and you see the transformation that Oklahoma City went through.
I would add too that something that most people don't recognize is how all of this too has come together to inspire innovation. I mean, when you look at these things that are going on, and you look at the restaurants, the entertainment venues, those kind of things that are opening, most of it is all local. Most of the restaurants are here that are opening now are not chains. They're local restaurateurs. You see a lot of these entertainment venues that we have. These are local people who are investing their money in our marketplace. You know, and we're seeing the Health Science Center now too become a real innovation center, and we're seeing a lot of bioscience companies and technology companies coming out of there. And we didn't have this decades ago, but it's because of this diversity of activity, events, people who are coming into our community that are creating a whole different environment than what we've had in the past. The number of startup businesses is just phenomenal, and that's something we really want to leverage.
One thing I want to also point out that people in Oklahoma City might not realize is that the Chamber of Commerce in Oklahoma City gets a lot of involvement from the top business leaders in the community. And in fact, if this is the only city you ever looked at, you might assume that that's going on everywhere else. But in most cities, the largest business leaders aren't as actively involved in the Chamber as they are here.
That's correct.
And so is that something that we inherited, or is that new with this generation?
I think that's because we were a land-run city. and really there were sort of business people here before there were government people here. But there just is a cultural attitude in this community that if you're a business person, you're supposed to be involved. You know, and yeah, we get the top leadership, but you also see those same people in United Way. You see them in the YMCA. You see them in Allied Arts. They really are engaged. And to your point, you can go to a lot of cities and the CEOs are not at the table at the Chamber of Commerce. They may be at some other economic development organization, or they may be in some civic other area, but we're fortunate. We have this solid corporate buy-in, and we've had it since we were born. It's not something that just happened. It's an institutional culture in Oklahoma City, and it's an expectation. If you're a corporate CEO, you need to be helping us build a better city.
And you know, we've talked a lot in this show about being realistic, understanding the oil and gas industry is suffering and it's a significant part of our economy, but there are a lot of other things going on. One thing I think worth pointing out is that we rely more and more on nonprofits. As the years have gone by, nonprofits have taken a larger role in the quality of life in Oklahoma City. Those nonprofits hadn't necessarily diversified their revenue streams adequately, and so when the oil and gas industry started slumping, I think their budgets have decreased. And right now we're kind of looking for others in Oklahoma City, business leaders, to kind of step up and take a larger role in that giving.
That's a perfect observation. Yeah, there's a huge reliance in this community on entities other than government. I mean, government plays a very important role, but whether you look at social services, even criminal justice related, nonprofits play a huge role in that. Churches play a huge role in that. And you're right, it's easy to not be very wide in your audience of who supports those things. And so I think a lot of our nonprofits are beginning to see they need to diversify their portfolios in terms of where their revenues come from.
And a reminder, if you're in a position to help out your favorite nonprofit or religious entity, feel free to do so. Roy, thanks for coming on, and thanks for the great work you and your staff do at the Chamber of Commerce.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love. but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers wrapping up the show with Roy Williams of the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce.
It's always good to have Roy on because he brings a freshness to our information about what's going on in the community, in the business sector, and all factors of Oklahoma City life that affect all of us. And it's really good that someone with that vision and that zeal and that enthusiasm is in charge of the chamber, because the chamber's a big mover in that segment. Well,
if you look back through the history of Oklahoma City, the chamber's been involved in almost every milestone, whether it's Tinker Air Force Base or the water infrastructure that we rely so heavily on today, or helping us, pass initiatives that are transformative, like MAPS and MAPS for Kids. And
I remember Stanley Draper, the chamber, being referred to as a beneficial zealot. He really went after the business sector.
Stanley is a legend and accomplished great things, and Roy and his staff are doing good things in this generation. We have some website information for you. OKCChamber.com is how you can get some great resources about Oklahoma City, and our website, theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week.